Hi everybody! So we're going to make an owl today, and in our last video we talked about the sorts of things you were going to need in order to make this little guy. So I'm not going to spend too much time on intro today. We're just going to jump right into the tutorial because he's a little larger than some of the little Autumn Decor that we've made in the past, and we want to get right down to it. So let's go to the craft table. Alright, I have assembled the yarns that I've decided to make my little owl out of this time. So this is a kind of a tweedy thing. I have a couple balls of it. This is the stuff I'm going to use today. It's called like Country Soft or Country Comfort. I don't know. It was sort of this odd ball of stuff I found in one of those sort of craft stores you stumble across when you're out driving around in the country. I don't remember the name of it. I've long since lost the sheath that it came in, but I did buy a couple balls of it at the time. So this is the stuff I'm going to use just because I kind of like this tweedy sort of effect. However, the more important thing is that it's a bulky weight yarn, sort of a size 5, and it's fluffy. So you end up with this sort of like thicker, fluffier look. So that's the stuff I'm going to use for the body. Now you can use the same thing for the wings, or you can use a different chunky yarn for the wings. I used two different things held together, and we talked about the multi-strand technique in the intro to the baby unicorn. So I won't talk too much about that today, but I may end up holding two strands together when I do the wings. I don't know, because I like to build things organically. So I'm definitely going to use this for the body, and I've got a skinny, sparkly bit of scraps for whatever I put on the tummy, and maybe I might work it into the wings. And I also grabbed an assortment of other similar colors, nice oranges, warm reds, just because this is going to be sort of a an autumn colored or an autumn theme colored little hooter. So I'm going to start with the body. We're going to get right into it. So grab your chunky yarn. You're going to want a 5.5 millimeter hook, or this is also known as an eye or a size 9. This is a slightly larger hook than I usually use because I am using slightly thicker yarn, and I also want my my stitches to be comfortable. I don't want them to be too tight. I don't want them to be too loose. I don't want them to bend strangely, so I'm using a slightly larger hook than I normally do. I've got my scissors. I've got my yarn needle, and just out of the shot, I've got a big bag of stuffing, but that's not important right now. We will get to that. Also, I've got an assortment of yellow buttons that I'm going to use for his eyes. I'm not exactly sure how big I'm going to want them yet, so I grabbed a few that I liked, and some black felt. This is up to you. You don't have to have this if you don't want to. I gave him black pupils, so I sewed those actually on top of the button when I sewed the eye unit down to the head. But you don't have to do that if you don't want to, if it feels like too much work. But I like that look. I kind of like that I've layered the eyes, and it looks a little more like an owl to me. So that is that. Also, you're going to need a little sewing kit if you're going to use the felt, and also to sew the buttons on. So we're going to start with the body of our owl, and we start right from the top. We do the whole body in one piece all the way down to the bottom. Here we go. You're going to start with a cinch circle, and you hold your yarn, you make a loop, grab your hook, put your hook through your loop, grab your yarn, pull it back into a loop, and then chain 1. Into this cinch circle, we're going to single crochet 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Cinch our circle shut, And we're working in the round, so we're not joining rows with a slip stitch. We're just going to keep on going all the way around. So row 2 starts now. Into each of these first 7 stitches, we're going to single crochet 2. And at the end of row 2, we will have a total of 14 stitches. That's 4. 6, 8, 10, 12, and 14. That's the end of row 2. We are making an ever-increasing circle, she says as she pulls out her yarn. So the next row, row 3, is going to be an end total of 21. We're going to single crochet twice into the next stitch. 1, 2. Once into the next stitch, and then repeat that all the way around. 2, 1, 2, 1, all the way around for a total of 21. That's 21. End of row 3, we have a total of 21. We're going to increase for one more row. So row 4, the pattern is 2 single crochet into the next stitch. 1, 2. 1 single crochet into each of the next 2 stitches. And then we repeat. 2 single crochet into the next stitch. 1 single crochet into each of the next 2 stitches. Repeat this pattern all the way around. We'll have 28 because 7 times 4 is 28. And 28. We've reached the end of our increasing rows, and now we're just going to single crochet straight for 5 rows. So rows 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9, a total of 5 rows, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9, are just going to be straight single crochet. You're going to single crochet into each stitch all the way around. If you need to, go ahead and you may not be able to see it so easily because this is a tweedy string, so you know what, I'll mark it with this. This I know to be my beginning stitch. So when I finish my 5 rows of straight single crochet, I want it to be completely in line, and I will put it in line with, so you see what I mean. I want to be completely in line with this stitch. So please go ahead and single crochet 5 rows of straight single crochet. Make sure you finish in line with this. When I get to the end of my 5th row of straight single crochet, I will show you what I mean, and we will continue from there. I'll see you in 5 rows. Okay, I've finished my 5 straight rows of single crochet, and I'm going to explain to you where I am. I've marked this stitch with my yarn needle just because I wanted to be able to demonstrate that this was sort of my start point. That was the first stitch I made. You can always put a safety pin or a stitch marker in here if you can't easily see where your first stitch is when you're working in the round, but it's easier with a marker, obviously, especially when you're using multicolored thread. And I have finished up or evened up my 5th row of straight single crochet, or row 9, with the beginning stitch. The way to count is this is the 1st row, 2nd row, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9. So I've done 9 rows. I've finished my straight single crochet of 5 rows, and now we're going to do a row of decrease. So we're going to go from 28 total stitches to 21. And I'm just going to get this out of the way. We're going to do that by single crocheting the first 2 together, and you do that by bringing up a loop in each of the next 2 stitches and then bringing a loop through everything on the hook. That's 2 together. We're going to single crochet into each of the next 2 stitches and then single crochet 2 together, single crochet into each of the next 2 stitches, single crochet 2 together, single crochet into each of the next 2 stitches, and continue this all the way around until you have 21 stitches in total. And you're back at the beginning. So, row 10, we went from 28 to 21 stitches. Row 11, we're going to single crochet in each stitch all the way around. 1, 2, 3, 4, 20, 21. So that's the end of row 11. And in row 12, we're going to increase again because now we've done his head and we're going to start making his potty little body. So we're going to do kind of a funny increase row. We're going to single crochet twice into the next stitch. 1, 2. Then we're going to single crochet into the next stitch. And then we're going to repeat. 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1. We're going to increase just like this all the way around, and we're going to have a total of 32 stitches when we're finished. So it's always good to count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, and one more into that makes a total of 32. 32. You will have done 2 stitches into the next stitch, 1 stitch into the stitch following that all the way around. You will have ended with 2 single crochet into the next stitch. So that's what gives you 32. And it's sort of a funny increase, but because we're going around and around in a circle and then we're going to stuff it, it's not important. You're not going to notice it changing the overall shape. So now we've increased. That's enough for his neck. And from rows 13 to 20, we are going to single crochet in each stitch all the way around. So rows 13 to 20, and always remember to count. If you have to, you can put a little stitch marker in there so that you can count your rows 13, 14, 15, etc. all the way along. That'll maybe help speed you up if you can't easily count the rows after you crochet them. And I will see you at the end of row 20. Okay, excuse me, I've just finished the 20th row of the entire owl, and this was straight single crochet for a while. So your owl body should look something like that. You've got a distinct head shape, a little narrowing for the neck, and then it comes, pulls out into the body again. So we're going to take a moment and start stuffing it. We're not going to stuff it all the way, but we are going to stuff the head and make sure that that's nice and firm. And we're going to stuff the neck and most of the body, but we're still going to leave some space for ourselves to hold it and work, because we're going to have to start decreasing shortly. So remember not to overstuff it, but you want it to be firm and fat. Stuffed toys are so much cuter when they're fat. Okay, so that's all I'm going to put in for now. I'm going to put in a little more towards the end. Now we're going to start decreasing. So we are on row 21. We are going to single crochet 2 together and single crochet into the next 2 stitches all the way around. So we single crochet 2 together, single crochet into the next 2, single crochet 2 together, single crochet to the next 2. Okay, so we've single crocheted 2 together and then single crocheted into the next 2 all the way around. So 2, 1, 1, 2, 1, 1. You should have a total of 24 now. We're going to continue decreasing before we add any more stuffing. So this is now row 22. We're going to single crochet 2 together, single crochet into the next stitch. We're going to repeat that pattern all the way around for a total of 16. So 2 together, 1, 2 together, 1, and the last 2 together, and 1. Okay, I'm going to add a little more stuffing. Stuff. There we go. And I'm going to do another row of decrease, add a little more stuffing, and then we're going to cinch it shut. So now we're at row 23. We're going to single crochet 2 together all the way around. That'll leave us with a total of 8 stitches. There we go. So, a little more stuffing. Just make sure you don't lose your loop. If you want, you could also put some beans in the bottom if you wanted them to sort of have a nice heavy bottom to sit on. But it's really not necessary because he's a pretty large little stuffed toy. And as you can see, he's already inclined to sit on his own. I want him to be a little firmer, so a little bit more. There we go. I think that's enough. Yep, that'll be enough. Okay. Now, if you like, you can, if your hole's pretty large like mine and fairly even, you can single crochet another couple together. This is if you want to. You can also jump straight into the slip stitching, but I think I'm just gonna single crochet a couple more together, just like that. Now I'm going to slip stitch around the post. This is the post of the stitch previous. It's the vertical line that sits between the top horizontal and the bottom horizontal of the 2 stitches from the previous rows. So I'm going to slip stitch around the posts as opposed to the actual stitches, because in a way you're kind of cinching 2 stitches together, and it does this lovely little close-up around the bottom of your stuffed toy. And sometimes I even like slip out of that and go into the next row up, because what I want to do is close those little holes. So that's one more maybe. There we go. Now I'm going to snip myself along this tail, and I'm going to fasten off, and I'm going to weave that tail in around the bottom of the owl, just to close up any more little holes that I think I want to close up. And this little extra bit of cinching goes a long way to keeping all the stuffing in your little amigurumi. Not only that, but if you're trying to shape a slightly unruly toy, this is also a helpful method. It's kind of like a crochet hack. And once it looks nice and even and round and closed, you can just pick up a couple more stitches, backtrack into some of them because that will help lock your yarn in place, and just bury the rest in the body of your owl. There we go. All right, we are well on the way to making our cute little owl. So there's your head, there's your body. The main part is all done. Everything from here on out is accessories. So you can go sit over there. Now we're going to make his wings. So these are simple teardrop shapes, and if you put them on a slight angle, it looks like he's got his wings sort of tucked up behind him, and that's what we're going to do next. Now, you can use a single chunky yarn if you like, or if you have some of this strange stuff. Now, this is stuff I had in my stash. It's a bit wonky. It's like crimped hair. I used it on this little guy. It's not really thick, so I paired it up with a skinny thing. I think for the wings on this guy, will I go with orange or will I go with red? I think I'm going to go with red, and I think I'm going to make them solid red. So I'm going to use a single thick fluffy yarn to make these wings for this little guy. So here's how you make your wing. We're going to start with a slip knot. So there's your slip knot. You make your slip knot however you like. We're going to chain 2. 1, 2. We're going to single crochet twice into the second chain from the hook. So back in basically the first one that you made, we're going to single crochet 2 times. We're going to chain 1. We're going to turn our work. Now we're working back the other way. We're going to put 2 single crochet into each of these 2 stitches. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Chain 1, turn your work. Now we're going back the other way. We're going to put 2 single crochet into the first stitch. 1, 2. We're going to single crochet into each of the next 2 stitches. 1, 2. We're going to put 2 single crochet into the last stitch. So you're going to have a total of 6 stitches across row 3. Chain 1 and turn. We're going to put 2 single crochet into the first stitch. 1, 2. We're going to single crochet across the middle 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And we're going to put 2 single crochet into the last stitch. This will be a total of 8 across row 4. Chain 1 and turn. You're going to single crochet into each stitch all the way across, so no more increasing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That was row 5. Chain 1 and turn. Row 6 and row 7, you're going to do the same thing. So just single crochet all the way across row 6, chain 1 and turn, and single crochet all the way across row 7. This is the end of row 7. All right, you're going to chain 1, turn your work. Row 8, we're going to start bringing it into a teardrop shape, or more kind of creating the rounded top of the wing. So you're going to single crochet 2 together. You're going to single crochet into the middle 4 stitches. 2, 3, 4, and you're going to single crochet the last 2 stitches together. That's going to bring you to a total of 6 stitches across. Chain 1 and turn. And this is your last row. This is row 9. You're going to single crochet 2 together all the way across. So you single crochet the first 2 together, single crochet the middle 2 together, and single crochet the last 2 together. That gives you a total of 3 stitches And that is the top of your wing. Now your wing is going to like cup a little bit, but that's okay because you want it to cup a little bit since it's the wing of a bird. Now go ahead and make your second wing and then we'll attach them. All right, we're going to get into the eyes now, and a little something I forgot to mention. You're going to want to use one of your smaller hooks. Doesn't matter how much smaller. Something that's maybe appropriate to the size of the yarn you're going to use around his eyes. So if you're using, for example, a skinnier yarn, this is, let's see, this is a size, oh, this is considered a size 4. How do you like that? But it's so much skinnier, it's not a chunky or a bulky weight yarn. So if you're using a size of yarn like this, then you want to downsize your hook accordingly. So I think I'm going to use this F hook, or a 3.75 millimeter hook. All right, so we're going to get into making his eyes. Now, these should look pretty familiar to any of you who did the magical woodland headband that we did last tutorial. These are technically little flowers, and I used them as sort of I kind of wanted a whimsical, kind of almost a, just a little different kind of look for his eyes, so I decided to use these flowers as a backdrop to his eyes, as opposed to just making big round circles, because I liked the added bit of texture it gives, and I just thought it was kind of cute. So I'm going to continue using this flower pattern behind his eyes, but if you guys wanted to make yourselves a disc, you can do that, and obviously you know how to make the disc, because that's how you start by making the top. So you make a cinch circle, you put however many single crochets into it that you want, you double it, and then triple it. And that will give you a simple little disc. And if that's what you want to do, go ahead. Otherwise, the rest of you can make little flowers with me. So you're going to start with a cinch circle. And I want 6 petals. So I'm going to single crochet 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Cinch it shut. We're going to slip stitch into the next stitch. We're going to chain 1. We're going to double crochet into that same stitch. And it's a little tight, so be patient with yourself. Double crochet. We're going to double crochet again into that same stitch. Chain 1, slip stitch into that same stitch, and that's the first petal made. We're going to slip stitch into the next stitch, chain 1, and double crochet twice into that same stitch, chain 1, slip stitch into that same stitch. That's another petal made. Slip stitch into the next stitch, chain 1, double crochet twice, chain 1, slip stitch, 3 petals made. Now remember to repeat this all the way around for 6 petals, and then once you're done, you're going to fasten off and leave a moderately long tail for sewing the eye to the owl. All right, there's pretty little eye background number 1. Now you want to make one more so that you've got 2. Okay, guys, we're going to make the beak now. And this is one of those funky little three-dimensional things that kind of happen without you really realizing it. So I kind of discovered this a little while ago when I was trying to make a beak, and I think it works out pretty cool. So we're going to start with a slip knot. And I'm going to continue using my slightly smaller hook for this. And this is a Super Saver ball of yarn. So any of you red heart lovers will know that's a Super Saver. So that's a slightly thicker ball of yarn too. Definitely a size 4. We're going to chain 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 4. We're going to slip stitch into the second chain from the hook. Slip stitch. We're going to single crochet into the next chain. Single crochet and half double crochet or double crochet, this is your call, into the last chain. So I'm going to half double crochet. Now we're going to chain 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So we got something that looks like this now. We're going to slip stitch into the next stitch back from the hook. So second chain back from the hook, slip stitch, single crochet into the next chain, and repeat either the half double crochet or the double crochet, whichever you did in this stitch, we're going to repeat in the last of these stitches. And you're going to trim your yarn, give yourself about 7 or 8 inches, just to be on the safe side. Fasten off. Take your yarn needle, thread it through the opposite end, so the same hole where your original thing was, and boom. An open beak. This you're just going to sew on to your bird, but we're going to sew that on last. So there's your beak. Now, I'm going to let you guys decide what you want to put in the center of your owl's tummy. I made a star using the star pattern that I've got up on the channel. You could also put in a heart, you could put in that little rainbow that we made, you could do the leaves. You can pretty much put whatever you want here, or if you feel like being really, really crafty, you can do what I did with this little hooter. Make yourself a round disc, and that's your ever-increasing circle. And once you've got it as big as you want, fasten off, leave a long chain tail for sewing it to the center of your owl. But before you do that, you can go ahead and do a little embroidery, either with embroidery floss or with yarn. And like I did here, I embroidered a couple of simple little flowers, and I just kind of like that. So you guys can choose whatever center you want to make for your owl. I'm going to skip over that just because we do have other little tutorials up on those things. But I'm going to go ahead and make something for the center of my tummy, and then we're going to sew it all together. I'm going to start by sewing my middle onto the tummy of my owl. So before I do anything else, I'm going to start with the center. If you've made a heart or a star or a sun or a rainbow or whatever you decided to put into your center, go ahead and grab that. We're going to do the middles first, because then this gives us sort of a center that we can base all of our other sewing off of. So I'm just going to, like all the other little things that I sew onto stuff, I'm just going to pick up little stitches all the way around. Nothing super fancy, just keep looking at it, making sure that it's in the middle. And the nice thing about this Tweedy yarn is that it kind of gives you extra little pieces to pick up and use. And try to hide your stitches. And remember to look at it. It's nice and centered. Cute little, might put a little bird or something over there later. Okay, I finished sewing my little center on. I'm just going to knot it very simply. Whoops. Pick up that little string there. There we go. And weave that in to the middle of the owl. Go. There. So I'm probably going to put like a little, maybe I'll embroider a tiny wee little sun there later, but anyway, that's the center. So for all demonstrative purposes, there's the center of my owl. Now I'm going to put on his wings. So I'm going to pick up my first wing. I'm going to thread up my needle before I do anything. There we go. And I want the curved, your wing is going to tend to want to curve boom, like this. So you're going to obviously want the roundish bit to stick out. I like to put the wings on so they're at a bit of an angle, so that the pointy bit is kind of angled backwards. And there's almost like a flat piece of the wing that's kind of in alignment with the bottom. But you know what? They're your wings. You can put them on however you want to. You just want to make sure that they're on evenly. So base it off your center. So your first wing on, and then reassess how it looks. So for example, pick up your second wing, and when you get the first one sewn on, reassess and decide where you're going to put the second one. So here I go. Okay, so I'm nearing the end of the first wing being sewn on. I'm just putting in the last few little stitches here. And something I like to remind everybody, when you're sewing on accessories or pieces in sets of 2, always remember that you don't have to knot down your sewing yarn onto the actual piece, because anytime you have more than one piece going on, you can use these 2 strings to knot together, and that saves you actually having to put a knot anywhere on the front of your little stuffed toy that you're making. So for example, here I have finished sewing my wing on, my first wing, and I'm going to take my needle and I'm going to put it through the stitch relatively close to where I brought it out last. I'm just going to work it through to the back of the neck. There we go. Through the middle of a hole, pretty much in the back of the neck of my owl. I'm going to pull the string out and leave it there. And after I have wing number 2 on, I will take what's left of that sewing tail, pull it out through the same hole, knot both strings together, and then pull the strings back into the body of the owl. And that keeps you from having to have any messy little knots on the side of your owl or on the little accessory that you made. So number 1 wing is on. Let's go ahead and put on number 2, and I'll see you at the end. Okay, so our little potty owl has his center tummy on, and he's got his 2 wings on. Now we're going to make his eyes. Now the eye units are sort of special. So we've got the little flowerets that we made. I've picked these 2 sort of medium-sized yellow buttons to sit in the center, and I've cut out 2 relatively similar circles out of black felt. And that is what they're going to look like. Now, if you want to add a little glimmer to the eyes, you're going to take a needle and some white thread, knot the end of your thread, take one of your black pupils, bring the needle up through the very center of your eye, and towards the edge of your circle, pull your string down, bring it back up through the center again, close to the center's fine, and then at like a little 45-degree angle, pull it down. Now you can do that once or twice. Try to bring it up through the center both times. And that gives you a little glimmer. Then you just knot it on the back once or twice. Don't pull too taut because you don't want to like pull your glimmer out of place. And snip it. And that gives you like a little glimmer in his eye, like there's a bit of light reflecting off his pupil. So you can go ahead and do the second one. Now, we are going to sew. You're going to take some needle and your needle and black thread now. I'm going to get a nice long piece. So you're going to double tie this. So, take your needle and black thread and thread it up. There you go. You're going to tie both ends together because then you're going to do this, it'll give you sort of twice the string. There you go. Pick up one pupil and one button, and you're going to sew this down once or twice. You're just going to run a couple of threads through this first, just through the black felt into, just to sort of secure it to the eye, and try not to get it into the glimmer. There we go. Then you're going to pick up your flowerette and you're just going to place it in the middle, and then you're going to sew through everything once or twice. So just play around with your needle until you find a hole in your button, and then sew it down a couple times. Try not to sew any black thread over your white glimmer. So just take your time with this little part. And go. You just want it on well enough that it won't come off, but not too tight. You don't have to go crazy sewing it down. So if you come up and you know that you're going to actually end up putting it through the hole of, like, if the next hole is on the other side of your glimmer, just run your needle and thread underneath your white stitches, like that, and then put it down. Find the hole, there it is. And you just want to do that a couple times. You're going to do that to both eyes, and as soon as that's done, we're going to sew the actual eye unit onto the owl. Alright, once you have your two little eye units made, you're going to take your yarn needle, grab your owl, and decide whereabouts you want them situated. Now remember, you want to try and sew them on so that both the glimmers are kind of going in the same direction. And there's not a whole lot of room on the front of the face, so they're probably going to sit right next to each other. And the little petals of the flowers might actually squish into each other a little bit, which is perfectly alright, because this is just sort of the fluffy facial part of the owl. So I'm going to go ahead and sew down one of the eyes. Now I want the eye petals to sit out a little bit. So all I'm going to do is put my yarn needle in through some stitches in the head underneath the petal and pick up those stitches. And then I'm going to pick up the stitches that are underneath the petal. So right back here, underneath the petal, I'm going to pick up those stitches. So not the edge stitches, the petal stitches underneath. Then I'm going to pick up some stitches on the head that are underneath the flower, and I'm going to pick up those stitches underneath there. So I'm going to keep most of the sewing sort of towards the core of the eye unit. And you don't have to be tight about this. In fact, you want to be a little on the loose side, but you want to keep all those stitches underneath, just like this. I'm picking up the bottom of the petal, Stitches underneath the eye unit, and then the petal stitches closer to the center so that the top edge of the flowerette sort of sits open and out and stays kind of fluffy. And before you know it, you've done all 6 petals. And just like with the wings, I'm just going to get this last few stitches here. Just like with the wings, I'm going to bring my needle up through a common stitch in the top of the head, and I'm going to do the same thing when I'm finished sewing this one on, and then I'll knot those two strings together and pull them back down into the body of the owl. So I'm going to go ahead now and sew on eyeball number 2, and I'll see you in a moment. Alright, his little eyes are on. I've got both the glimmers going in the same location, or the same direction. Now we're going to put on his little beak. This just totally makes him look like an owl. So we're going to take that long string, thread up our yarn needle, and we're going to just plunk it right in, right in the middle between the two eyes. And you're probably only going to put in like 2 or 3 stitches, 4 stitches at the absolute max. And what I like to do is actually go right through the back of the, sort of like top to bottom, through the top, down through the bottom of the owl beak, and pick up a couple more stitches right underneath it. And then do the same thing down through the middle of what would be both of your half double crochets or your double crochets. And right back up to the middle. Sorry, I'm kind of making this a little difficult to see. And then right down through the edge, top to bottom of that beak. There you go. And I'm going to take that all the way out there. Now I have a little bit of extra tail. Probably you guys will have a little bit more than me, because if you're smart, you leave yourself a little bit of extra tail. It's just easier to weave in a bigger piece than a smaller piece. Pull both those ends out through a common hole somewhere nearby. Knot them together just like everything else, and then pull them back down into the head of your owl. And there you have your owl. Da, 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 da. Now, there's a couple more little things that we're going to put on. You'll notice that these little guys have sort of furry eyebrows, little tufty things. This is really, really simple to do. All we're going to do is a bit of whip stitching. So you don't need your crochet hooks anymore. What you do need is your yarn needle, and you're going to pick a color that you want kind of to be like his brow with these little tufts in it. So I'm going to choose, I think I'm going to choose this nice, slightly skinny, sort of sparkly yarn. Absolutely, totally forget what this is called, where I got it. Sorry guys, it's one of those oddballs. Probably something I found in the cheap bin, because I tend to do that. I'm going to cut myself off a fairly long length, so maybe 2 feet long, maybe a little longer. Doesn't have to be, this just gives me extras to work with here. I'm going to thread it up, and I'm going to take my needle, go through a distant hole somewhere in the top of my owl, and I'm going to come out right between his eye units, so right kind of at the where his eyebrows would furrow. And you can do this a little higher if you want, or a little lower. I'm going to give him sort of a lifted expression, so I'm going to just bring out just enough. I'm going to leave a tail up here for knotting later. And I'm going to go up 1, 2, 3 stitches up to the top apex of his first eye, and I'm going to make a couple of whip stitches. So I'm going to do 1, not too tight, and then another one in the same hole, just like that. Now I'm going to go into that same hole again, but I'm going to come out in a triangular position, a couple, about 1, 2, 3 stitches down off the corner of his eye. Now you can go out over here, you can go out a little bit further if you want. In fact, I might even go out a little bit to the side, just like that. And now I'm going to make 3 whip stitches going through those same holes. So there's 1, and there's, oops, 2. Now I'm going to go back into this hole, and I'm going to go into the middle one again. So I'm going to in the top, out through the bottom, so the middle of the forehead. That gives me 3 whip stitches over here and 3 whip stitches there. And now I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to mirror image it over here. So I'm going to pick a point pretty much directly up the apex from the top of his eyeball, and I'm going to whip stitch once and twice. I'm going to go back into that stitch, and I'm going to pick an opposite hole that mirrors his other eyebrow out the far side. Let's get that little thing out of the way. So that creates 3 stitches here. I'm going to whip stitch once, and then twice, and then back into that top hole, so the top of his second eyebrow, out through the initial hole that I originally came in with. That creates 3 whip stitches. So I've got whip stitches 3 here and 3 here. That makes 1 little eyebrow. 3 here and 3 here. That makes a second little eyebrow. I'm going to knot these 2 together, not tightly because I don't want to pull any of my whip stitches sort of too tightly. Just knot them together once and then twice. Now, if this is too long for you, just cut it. Pull this down into the head of your owl. Those are his little eyebrows. Now we're going to make the tufts. So you're going to take that same color of yarn, and you're going to grab your end, and you're going to hold with a little bit of tail, say, I don't know, 1-2 inches. Hold it between your thumb and your index finger, and you're going to wrap it around your 4 fingers twice, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, 6 times, 7 times, 8 times, 9, 10. So 10 times. You're going to bring your string up to the top of your hand again, so between your thumb and your index finger. Cut it at about the 2.5 inch mark, just like that. You're going to take that string, you're going to tuck it down around and through that circle you made, grab your other string, and you're going to tie them both together. Now this requires a little bit of dexterity, but you're just going to tie these together in a nice tight little knot, just like that. Now, you'll notice that these 2 strings wind up being about as long as these ones. So before you do anything else, you're going to cut a length of string, maybe 6 or 7 inches long, and you're going to pull it through the middle so that it sits like this. Tie a knot right across the top, right over top of the one you just made. Do it twice. You can never tie a knot just once. All right. Pull your strings taut from this point and just snip it, kind of like you would if you're making a pom-pom. There you go. You can trim this up later. So that is going to sit right at the top of the apex. Now you're going to go ahead and make a second one of these. Now you're going to take those 2 long strings, and you can use either your yarn needle or a crochet hook, whichever you find is easiest. So I'll grab the first one. You're going to thread both ends of that last tying thread through your yarn needle. You're going to go through the very top hole that sits at the top of your first eyebrow and bring it up through the very top of your owl. There we go. Leave those strings. Grab number 2, do the same thing. Go through the hole at the top of your second eyebrow. Bring those strings out the top of your owl. Take all 4 strings and knot them together. Like that. And you can just pull those back down. And you've got 2 funky little eyebrows. And depending on the quirkiness of your yarn, they will be fluffy and wild like this one, or somewhat more refined and tailored like this one. This guy already looks like he's got more going on upstairs than this nut bar over here. Ah, you guys are so cute. Hoot, 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 hoot. One potty, chubby, fluffy little owl. Best made out of scraps. Anything you have lying around. You can hold two thinner strings together to make the whole thing if you want, or you can go with a solid color ball and make something that looks a little more realistic. You can embroider little flecks into him. You can put whatever you want on his tummy or leave it plain. You can do whatever you like. This is a very versatile, cute little toy pattern, and every single one you make is going to be unique from the next. So you can literally make a set of these and have them sitting on your shelf or give them away as gifts. These are adorable. I think anybody would love to get one of these things. So there you go, guys. One cute little whimsical enchanted owl just for you, and we will come up with something else. Since we're heading into fall, I think we're going to do some fallish things. I'm not going to say what exactly yet, but I do have a pile of ideas that I can't wait to get into. Thank you so much for tuning in and staying with us and watching. And please thumbs up if you liked this pattern and share it with your friends, because I love it when we get new people on board and they find us through the internet. It is just it's absolutely awesome, and it makes us want to make more stuff. So please like, please subscribe, and we will see you again very, very soon for another awesome crochet pattern, and we will stitch it up together. Thanks, guys. Bye.